right, so I've always been curious about these direct drive electric conversion kits simply because I wanted to figure out a way how to turn my riding style, which is surf skatey, deep carving, into an electric build. I started with an extremely cheap hub drive knockoff electric skateboard that was like $127. Then I got a Shark Wheels electric board. Next, an Andra Challenger belt drive, and now the Revel Kit. So I wanted to briefly share that because if you're someone who builds electric skateboards from scratch, then you're probably not gonna get too much value out of this video. And the last quick thing I wanted to share is that I'm 5'11", I weigh 165 pounds, and my riding style ranged anywhere from 8 to 12 miles per hour with deep carves. Let's start by going over the notable features about this kit. So you can either get their standard range battery, which they claim will get you 6 to 10 miles, or their extended, which will get you 10 to 15 miles. Personally, I went with the extended battery because at the time that I bought it, the price difference between the standard and extended really wasn't that significant, and it just seemed like a no-brainer. It's direct drive, giving you the option to swap out the wheels, which for me was definitely a deciding factor on getting this kit. One of the sick parts is that the battery is swappable. So if you want to go for a longer ride and this single battery charge isn't going to cut it, you can just buy another battery, charge that, put it in your backpack and swap it out. You also have the ability to do 4-wheel drive. I didn't do this simply because it just didn't fit within my riding style, but I think that's just another cool feature. Let's take a look at the remote. All of the remotes I've tried, and I believe it's the most common design, is this scroll/wheel acceleration and braking. The Revel doesn't have that. Instead, it's just this up and down slider, which originally I was definitely like, oh man, I don't think I'm gonna like this, but it grows on you, it feels natural. The screen had all the necessary info I was personally looking for: remote battery indicator, main battery indicator, speed, wheel diameter and braking power adjustment, trip distance, and odometer. Now the charging port uses, I believe it's called a micro USB, and honestly, I wish that they used a USB-C. Not a big deal, but if you have gone from a micro USB to a USB-C, you know that the USB-C is the move. All right, now I want to share my experience riding this kit and doing a few different tests. First, I did a range test with the loaded Omakase deck paired with the Revel stock setup. I ended up getting 11.1 miles until I got the 10% remaining indicator. I'd consider my environment somewhat hilly, so I'd say their claim of 10 to 15 miles is pretty spot on. It took about 8 seconds to go from a standstill to max speed on a flat straightaway. Honestly, the torque on this thing is pretty solid, and I wasn't expecting that. I would definitely say that braking is on the stronger side, which isn't a bad thing. I would honestly say that's probably a good thing, because if you're in a sketchy situation and you need to stop immediately, then you can. Just know that on the lowest braking setting, it does still take some time to get used to. Now I want to share my thoughts on the stock Revel components, the wheels, the bushings, bearings, trucks. Overall, if the stock Revel setup was my only option, I'd be content with it. The 90mm 74A wheels have a high rebound urethane and are obviously super sticky. The quality is actually pretty decent and something I again wasn't expecting. I feel like the 94A bushings was a solid choice because I weigh 165 pounds, max speed, I didn't get any speed wobbles, although there are a few different factors that come into play when you get speed wobbles. The trucks are decent RKPs, pretty standard, but at the same time, nothing stands out as being like bad about them. The bearings though, I kind of do wish had built-in spacers, because the combination of trying to line up the wheels with the adapter and align the spacers was a little annoying, and I feel like just from a user experience perspective, having built-in spacers would be nice. All right, now I want to share my experience after trying a few different customized setups. The first was the Omakase with the Paris V3 165mm 50 degrees front truck paired with orangutan orange knuckle bushings and orangutan 85mm Kaguamas, swapping between the 80As and 83As. This was a super fun setup to experiment and ride with. I messed around and swapped out the back bushings to softer ones, but I ended up finding that The 94As was the best choice from a speed wobble perspective, and having softer bushings in the front was a nice in between where it allowed me to get deeper with carving, but when I wanted to max out the speed, the stability was still there with the harder bushings in the back. Overall, this ended up being my favorite setup and will probably be somewhat permanent. You never know though. Then I tested it with a few different Surfskate adapters, Yao, Waterborne, Carver CX, and C7. The deck that I paired with all the adapters was the Yao Snappers, simply because it has a smaller wheelbase and I like the concave. So obviously all the adapters that I tried were more maneuverable compared to the RKP setups, but they still felt like something was missing. I just couldn't get a full range of motion compared to just a regular Surfskate setup that I usually ride. And I think obviously the reason behind that is because you can't do much tinkering with that back truck. If there was a way to put a Waterborne rail adapter back there, then I think it would be so fun, but it is definitely limiting for a Surfskate setup. Out of all of them, I felt like the Waterborne adapter makes the most sense if you're trying to do an electric Surfskate build, simply because it's a more compact design that has a cube urethane bushing. I guess next what I'm gonna have to do is try out the unlimited kit, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can swap out the back truck, but I'm not 100% sure. Bottom line, the Revel Kit, if you're trying to go for like a more Surfskatey spring adapter feeling where you can pump, it's just not ideal. Now I'm just gonna briefly summarize the pros and cons I can think of, starting with the cons. Since it's direct drive, I guess this really isn't specifically targeted at the Revel Kit. It's all direct drives, but there's minimal clearance between the wheels and the motors, so you are gonna definitely scrape up the motors, especially because for my riding style, I like riding a smaller wheel, and I believe with the 85 millimeters, I measured it, and it's only about like 3/8 of an inch clearance, which, as you can tell from this footage, made for a lot of scrapes on the motor. I'm sure a lot of you are already aware that there's minimal clearance when you're dealing with a direct drive, but I just wanted to point that out. Next, I kind of wish that the battery was easier to remove. I've struggled with removing it. I don't know if it's just me being an idiot, probably is, but I've definitely spent a good amount of time just trying to take the battery off. And that wasn't the only component that was tough to remove, I noticed. The wheels were pretty tough to take off the adapters. And the last con that I briefly mentioned was that the remote uses a micro USB, and I wish that was a USB-C. And for the pros, first, I love how easy it is to use this thing, how it just right out of the box, you can slap it on a deck and just go ride. Secondly, the stock Revel setup, the wheels, bushings, trucks, bearings are all solid quality. The last minor pro I wanted to mention is that I love how simple and to the point their manual is, as well as they have an online version of their manual. It's like the get started page or get to know your Revel Kit, something like that. And it's just really well designed, something that is kind of rare to come across, even though it's 2021. I can't tell you how many websites I've come across that just have their content poorly formatted, have poor images. Something is usually wrong, so it was just refreshing to see that their website and manual is down. Down? Bro, why am I saying down? Is really nice. It's good. All right, so my overall experience with the Revel Kit has been, as you can tell if you watch this whole video, positive, and I definitely would buy it again, and I would recommend it to a friend. Also, the t-shirt winners from the previous video, if you dropped a comment, I'm gonna display the 3 winners right here, and if you're watching this video, then you've already been notified, so I shouldn't even still be talking. All right, I hope this video helped you guys out. I'll see you in another one later.